Okay, this morning we're happy to welcome David Coogan, Kelvin Belton, and Stan Craddock to our group to talk about their relationship over the past 10 years. David's an associate professor here at VCU in the Department of English, where he teaches courses in memoir, rhetoric, and literature. He's the founder and co-director of Open Minds, which is a program that enables college students from VCU to take courses in arts and humanities with people incarcerated at the Richmond City Justice Center. David's the author of Writing Our Way Out, Memoirs from Jail, and the public work of rhetoric, citizen scholars, and civic engagement, which he co-authored with John Ackerman in 2010. His essays on writing, teaching writing for social change, have appeared in a variety of journals, and he's currently working on a history of prison memoir entitled The Memoirs of Mass Incarceration, the rhetoric of revolutionaries, witnesses, and survivors. Both Kelvin and Stan live and work here in Richmond. Kelvin is a basketball coach for the Blacktop Kings and Queens, and Stan's been back to the Richmond City Justice Center to discuss their book with individuals who are still incarcerated. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I would like to have you discuss over the next half hour or so 3 questions. The first one is, if I could ask you, I'll briefly go over all 3 of them so you have a mindset on where we'd like to go. Think back to when you first met each other. Can you recall the ideas you had about each other before you actually met? And then what were your impressions during your actual first meeting of each other? And then obviously, some of those first impressions may not have been accurate. Can you recall moments in the early days of your relationship when things shifted significantly, and what might have been happening in those moments that caused the shift? And then finally, some advice for the audience as they start in their journey to build partnerships. Looking back on your time together, what advice could you give our audience as they start to build relationships across diversity in the community? So first, go back to the very early days when you first met each other. What, even before you met, what did you think might be the story of the others, and then how has that changed?
You will have to start.
Well, I like that word cognitive dissonance that she mentioned earlier. You know, sometimes you can't hear cognitive dissonance. Dissonance in music can be beautiful. Dissonance in music is when the note doesn't resolve right away, and you can't hear a familiar chord. And so sometimes you can't hear that. When I walked into the jail the first time, I was in a major chord. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was pretty confident. I felt good about it, intellectually, ethically. I didn't feel like I had any kind of chip on my shoulder. I didn't feel nervous. In other words, what I knew about teaching writing was fueling my every step. And I went in as a writing teacher, but I didn't realize that there were other things to hear and experience besides the teaching of writing. So I came in the middle of the summer because I wanted to. I just came on my own to teach a course in life writing. Really, just 6 weeks is all I gave myself. I had been volunteering at Offender Aid and Restoration, and they were the ones that suggested to me, well, why don't you, if you really want to see if writing can make a difference in these folks' lives, you should really come to the jail, because then you can follow them from the jail till they get out, and you can see their reentry process. And I've been struggling at Offender Aid and Restoration, which is a nonprofit that works with ex-offenders, to keep one group of men or women together. So really, when I went into the jail, I was thinking about writing and social change and developing public awareness about the deeper causes of crime and the problems with reentry. Because I like to put writing out into the public sphere. That's the rhetoric part of how I see my field, rhetoric and composition. So that was how I came in. But like I said, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And so, although I felt pretty confident and secure with with my discipline, I was being disciplined, and I didn't even know it. Maybe I'll pass to you. You can, I mean, your first impressions, and go ahead.
Well, let me paint a picture so that way you can understand, right, how our paths crossed in this journey. I had just finished doing 12 years, right, in penitentiary, Department of Correction. They gave me parole, and I wasn't ready for parole, but they gave it to me. Anytime the cage opens, regardless of whether you're prepared or not, you run out the cage. I stayed in Richmond less than 90 days, and I was right back in court with a new sentence. I broke my mother's heart. My mother rode with me throughout my 12 years. And in the visitation rooms throughout Virginia, throughout the different prisons, I would tell her that I have it together. I'm gonna get out here and I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that. When you ask a person to do something right, you need to be able to have confidence to know that what you're asking, they can do. You taught them. You believe in their abilities. I didn't know how to live in society, but yet I said that I was willing to live in society. And I lived in society. Wait a minute. I knew how to live in society, but in a dysfunctional and criminal-minded way. I didn't know how to live in society, right, with a positive mindset. When the judge said she was going to send me back to penitentiary, I had 32 years that I had to finish. I did 12 of it, but I had another 10 or 12 years to go. And I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken because I wanted to do right, but I just didn't know how to do right. Through OAR, Dave mentioned OAR that he was working with. And one of the OAR ladies down the Richmond City Jail, she says, hey, you need to get involved in a writing project. And I'm like, wow, writing? How does implementing writing, right? How does that transform me? And it was no need to propose the question to her simply because I knew, right, that she didn't have the answer. She was new to it. The Richmond City Jail was off limits to volunteers. Dave was one of the first. So I signed up and I listened to Dave's orientation, his pitch. And I was sizing Dave up the whole time because I'm a criminal-minded. So I believe in understanding things. I evaluate personalities. I evaluate motives. Dave was naive. He didn't have an angle. He had no angle. He wasn't funded, so that wasn't the motivation. And I'm looking at this, right, and I'm evaluating, and Dave said, writing your way out. Writing your way out. Dave's talking about escaping. And I needed to, regardless of how long I was going to be in prison, I needed to be better. I just needed to be better. If I would have had to do the rest of my life in prison, okay, cool. I can do that. Because prison wasn't my problem anymore. Society was my problem. I was comfortable in prison. And Dave said, hey, listen, let's start here. Dave came up with some questions, right? And I said, wow, do I really want to go to those dark places in my life? Because he's asking to have access to those places. And that's what you were speaking about, the history. You know, I understand when you were saying about the mangled bodies, you know, how there was no respect for their humanity. Because I was mangled too. And Dave wanted to get in there and start moving shit around. Not with a backhoe, but with a pen and with his thoughts. And I wasn't sure that if this white cat right here deserved access. I just wasn't sure. But he had a naiveness about himself. And I said, okay, I'm gonna take a chance. I'm gonna pick up a pen and I'm gonna follow his instructions. You know, it's amazing, right? Because how many people did Harriet Tubman free? By following her instructions. There's a point and there's a time in all of our lives that we need a guide. Emotional guide, a physical guide, a psychological guide. We need someone that has more substance and validity to respect to where you're going, because they've been there. And that's how it started with Dave. That's how writing my way out started with Dave. Kelvin?
Before getting into the program and the writing program and everything, I had no thoughts about Dr. Coogan, didn't know anything about the program or anything. It all started out of some of the same reasons why Dave said he came. I mean, one out of, like Stan said, to escape. Guys came and got me, and they knew I used to write. I don't know if they planned on me writing, but they was doing it to get off for the tear block. So that first day, it was to get out of the tear. And the moment we sat down and started talking, he asked questions, but he didn't just ask questions. He listened to what we had to say, and he was engaged. So that first day, I took to him because he was real with us, and it was voiced right there in the room that, I mean, you could tell he was a real guy. Well, and when you're in that environment, being able to trust somebody and know that you're not being fake with you, it means a lot. So that was my initial, when I first met him, my initial thought of him. I mean, he was real curious. He asked a lot of questions. And he seemed to learn from us from the first day. He remembered everything we said. He'll come back in there and he'll give it to us in detail. And me, I was a write home and tell you all the promises that you want to hear type of guy, so I was already writing. And he started talking about us using writing to change our mind and change our ways in life. Could we do it, you know? And it also was a thing where we were looking at it like, well, okay, this is a double-sided, advantage to us, because if it can help us, then that's a plus. It's something to keep your time. You get to write your day away. You go into your past and you learn things about yourself that you didn't know. You're sharing. And for some reason, it's like they picked the right people, because we all us were willing to share our lives, our past, our feelings, our thoughts, and tell the truth. And I think it might have been the second week we were talking about the format of writing the book. And we were talking about doing it fictional. I was like, well, Dave, I mean, if it's all the same to you, I want to tell the truth. Because the truth is relatable, and if I can tell the truth, maybe it'll help somebody. And he agreed. That meant a lot to me. I mean, it's like my input meant something. So, you know, and it's been like that since day one. It took 6 years before anyone even would even think about publishing us. And the whole time it took that long because I think the first format of the book was all about trying to put us out there. Let us express our stories and our words. And well, it was a few people like guess me. I don't know how many people were like, well, Dave, it was your curiosity, your thoughts that brought this together, and it's you that's putting your money out there and your time. So put it in your words. Put our stories in your words. Put the format in your, make the book under your format, put it in your words, and let's see how that go. And it worked. So, you know, this has been like, well, it started off as a writing class. It formed into a kinship and friendship, now brotherhood. It's been 10 years now, and to be truthful, I've been through one real ordeal throughout my time leaving those bars and being home. And through that time, a lot of my brothers were still down. There was a few on the street, but the one that was by my side was David. So he became a teacher to me, a friend to me, a brother to me, and Stan, I knew Stan beforehand, so he were always friends on the streets. It was bad times and negative flow, but we were never that towards each other, so that was already there. But Dave came in from day one as a positive, real influence. Somebody that was willing to learn from us to quench his curiosity, and came in there to make a difference. And I always wanted to be a positive guy through my negative. So like Stan say, that guide, right? I said, well, maybe if I can follow this, well, I can help somebody and stop doing some negative things. So as far as the program from day one, I didn't go in thinking about writing my way out. But now today I can say that my mentality changed from that day. The things, my responsibilities, and the things that I want in life were always there, but it was like more magnified since getting into something that was more positive than the rest of the things I was doing.
I'm going to go to your second question, I think. I was listening and I was remember when I said about cognitive dissonance, and you asked when did the impression start to change, and I remember, like I said, I came in thinking I know how to teach a writing class, and our subject is our lives, and I'm in any other classroom. I just didn't think, okay, I'm in a jail, so. But nevertheless, like you said, I was naive and asking questions, and I was really learning. I was taking in a whole lot. One of the moments where it changed for me was when Stan asked me, why are you here? And I gave the same reason I'd been telling myself in my head about how I teach writing and why this is important and how it can help you and how it might help people in the public once we go public with the book. And he said, no, why are you really here? And you've heard him. He's pretty persuasive. So I had to think on that for a minute. Like, well, why am I really here on a Saturday, in the afternoon when it's beautiful outside? And he kept asking me questions until I could say something else. And I realized that I wasn't just there as a professor, but as a person, and that I had to think on a different side of me. And I'd gotten into the jail to teach from that side. There was some crime in my community that had concerned me, and that's what made me ask the question for myself, can ordinary people, not extraordinary people, but ordinary people who are incarcerated figure out a way to write their lives away from crime and the cycle of crime? And so he drew that out of me, and then I told him, we wrote about it. It's the first, I don't know, have you all read some of this? Maybe I'm repeating myself then. It's in the book where I described that moment. And then to pick up on what Kelvin said, another part, I was listening because I was learning more than I intended to learn. But when you tune your ears to the frequency of, again, the dissonance you can't hear, and you just really strain for it, I found that I was learning every day. And I would go home with their writings and I'd type them up and I'd study them and I'd look up stuff, and I was like, because I didn't know. So I came back one day and I asked Kelvin, when did you know you really wanted to be selling drugs? Because he had written these stories about how he had gone from that in high school, middle school and high school. And I said, you just didn't happen to be doing this, but you wanted to do this. And he just stared at me for the longest time and said, you're the first person ever asked me that. And then, we talked about it after he was released years later. And I said, you remember that time? He goes, yeah, now you're the second person that's ever asked me that. Nobody asked questions like that, Dave, except you. And the reason why that was so compelling to me was that I had always been asked questions as a kid. What do you want to do with your life? Why did you get a bad grade in school? And these questions that came at me from parents and teachers, and people in the church, these were questions that were trying to cultivate me as self-aware and directed, and it had never occurred to me, honestly, that other kids hadn't grown up that way. That's the naive part. I truly never considered that he's telling me the truth, that nobody really cultivated him to figure out what he wanted to do in his life. Not in a consistent way, not the way he wanted. And as he wrote more about that, you heard that he's a basketball coach. That was one of the big things in his memoir, that he didn't have anybody to mentor him seriously in that. So with all of the people that I met, I was learning new things about how they grew up and why they felt the way they did. And then I saw my task as figuring out, well, how can I stay open and tune all frequencies so that I can develop a way of teaching and organizing that keeps us together as a group and enables everybody to find the answers to their own questions. And you spoke on race, and that was something that came up. And I assumed that I didn't know enough about it, just like with addiction, just like with the criminal justice system, that I might have an opinion, I might have a bias, but I assumed that I needed to learn. I think that's the primary thing. And so they would argue. There's another chapter in there where Stan and Najee are arguing about the role of racial identity in your turn to crime or addiction. Because it's not surprising that there'd be more than one opinion on it, is there? But when I would tell people outside, when I'd go home that day, and I would tell them what we talked about in class, and they'd say, what? You asked that? Really? You don't know that the whole system is biased against African Americans? I'm like, well, I guess, yeah, but I'm not looking at the whole system. I'm looking at these men, what they want to tell me about it. And that's what I learned. When you get close to an issue or close to the people who are living the issue, you find all kinds of complexity that's fascinating if you're following people as opposed to political systems. And it's a back and forth that I learned how to do as I went from this workshop into writing the book, and then later to forming Open Minds, that there's always another way of looking at it. And the more diverse you get, or inclusive you get in bringing all viewpoints in, ultimately the more just the experience is for everybody. Because you learn to live with that dissonance, and it's not so bad, actually. It can be a beautiful thing. I'm not sure if I got your question or not. Yeah.
Calvin and Stan, do you want and to.
She was
sort
asking
of
how
Yeah.
our impressions of each
How it
other changed
yeah.
over time.
Yeah.
I think when you're attracted to something or someone, I don't think that the attraction or the chemistry develops in the lateral. I think it develops at the initial introductory. For me, I think I like Dave from day one. I wanted to know what Dave knew about me that I didn't know about me. I knew that I could flim-flam. I knew that I could do this, that I could do that I could rob. I knew that I could abuse. I knew all of that. But I didn't know anything good about me. And Dave was constantly saying, hey, take a look at this. Hey, take a look at that. You know, I had never been challenged to do a positive act, not even as a child. I remember I walked in the walkathon and my feet was hurting so bad I kept all the money. You know what I mean? I was wow. My feet was hurting. You know, but that's the criminal mindset. That's and it who developed it? And Dave was asking us, right, to find out where did it start? Where's the seed? You know, where did the embryo come from? And I wanted to know because I had a son and I wanted to at least be able to explain my life. You know, maybe not in details because I'll never tell everything about me. I'll never do that. But there's some things, right, that I need to share that will actually bring some sort of structure to those that I'm sharing it with. You know, I watched this library be renovated. You know, and people had a plan. They didn't see the old library. They saw the new library. And out of that vision, right, they mapped it out. And Dave was actually seeing something new. I never cared about a book. I never cared about a book, period. I cared about changing my life. I don't think Dave came in there with the aspirations of a book. I think Dave came in there with his own questions about why did something take place in his circle, his environment, his community. So he went out of his community into a different community, seeking the answers.
You want to speak on that or pass on to me?
You finished that?
Yeah, Dave hard to follow, man. Dave.
You think Dave hard to follow?
I'm a bridge here. I'm a conduit.
That's why we put you in the middle.
Yeah, really? I'm just the conduit.
But like I said, by not knowing Dave from the beginning, there was no expectations, no forethought. But like I said, once meeting him, finding out he was real, he was a good person, caring, and throughout the process, I mean, it's like I can't even pick a midpoint. So you know, but if I had to, I would say nothing changed. It was heightened. My view of him and what we were doing had to be better because I mean, when I had no one, I had my brother. I mean, and he's like a big brother. Well, he might be half my height, but he's like a big brother. I mean, stands up for me. Like, you know, it's not like I can't speak up for myself. I have a speech impediment, but if Dave is there and somebody says something, my memory is not all that. I've had Dave right there with me. Oh, no, that's not what you said. You know, because he has that photographic magical stuff there, forgets nothing. So I was blessed to have him by my side. So anytime he needs me, y'all need me, I'm here. Because when I needed him, he was there for me. And in this program, it's really helped me. I'm not perfect, I'm still struggling, but up here, I'm much better. You see, and with me being better up there, my tolerance is better. My patience is better, so I'm a better granddad. You know, I will go out here and do what I got to do now. I mean, as opposed to trying to take the easy way out, because, like you said, that criminal mind of how you finding the easy way out. I mean, it's like getting stuck in the maze instead of going for the long, short way. You're always trying to find a shortcut. So, you know, I mean, my perceptions were heightened. Meeting him, he was a real good person. I say that about him, the program, the whole core group of people I met along the way. It's just been all positive, and for me, I always wanted to be a positive person, even when I was negative. So, you know, my chances got better when I started being around the better people. They say you want to change yourself, change your people around you, change the crowd you hang with. So, you know, my perception, my views were heightened. Well, I see a much better person every time I'm around them. You know, but like I said, I can't find a midpoint for to tell you that I knew about him at first. I knew about what he did at the college. I didn't. So I met him, and very good person. Throughout the process of what we're doing now, he's been a better friend to me, a better teacher to me, and still has my back until today. So my perception of him, my views of him have from day one to now, are steadily going up.
Can I just add something about that? Because I understand, I think you're asking how to grow and sustain over 10 years. Is that part of what you're asking?
Yeah.
I mean, like, because one thing that I need to just echo, because he was right. I didn't come in saying, I want to publish a book at this level. You know, I had an idea like a little zine, you know, or a pamphlet that I would Xerox and hand out to people, you know, like, and I give myself 6 weeks over the summer to get it all done. But like you said, when you're asking someone for access that deep, you know, and to write your way out of so many layers of history that you didn't even know how they formed, it takes more than 6 weeks. So 6 weeks became, you know, 6 months, which became this process. And then, like I think Stan said earlier, you know, or Kelvin said earlier, the first version of the book was just an anthology of their stories, and it wasn't really selling, and nobody really cared about it, just like nobody cares about prisoners. And that was a real revelation for me. And they convinced me. I think Kelvin was the first, and then, I don't know, maybe it was Stan next who said, you got to write your story. You got to do exactly what you asked us to do. And it took me a while to realize, A, if that was really useful for the project, and B, to take myself seriously enough to know that I actually had a perspective here that was valuable. See, I was again focused on being the writing teacher, and I thought that what they did was the amazing thing, because they wrote about everything, you know, that mattered to them, and it was hard. Okay, so that's how after about 3 or 4 years. So along the way, there's a lot of ups and downs. You know, you get rejected from a publisher, you have folks in the book who aren't doing so well, and you know, there are people that you know along the way who die, and it's a lot. And I would call Kelvin. I would call him, and I would tell him what I was feeling, and I would tell him what bothered me, and he would kind of react to it and help me see the larger perspective of where I was in the process of developing not just this book, but this idea of what the message would be. And one by one, all of my brothers did this for me, and we do it for each other still. again, I went in as a professional, but I had to remember I was a person. I'm more than just a professor. And you know, this is a part of the process that is hard to remember, but again, you stay open to it. Right? About a year ago, I think, we were talking, and Kelvin said, I'm proud to say that in my own way, I've helped shape the curriculum at VCU. And I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's true. You know, the workshop that we did together helped me think differently about curriculum. And that's how I shaped Open Minds in the way it was, with the main principles of shared inquiry, shared hope, you know, open dialogue, you know, and opening up the big questions in life through the arts and the humanities, as opposed to coming at it with, you know, a set of skills that you think people need to learn or ideas they need to have. When we start from the bottom up. And it was really because of this dialogue and trust that we developed through writing in our workshop. So what he's saying goes both ways. I just wanted to echo that. And then the other part of it is, I think really key is, you know, what a shapeshifter does, you know, and sometimes you don't know when you're shifting your shape. Just like you can't hear the dissonance, you have to have an imagination to know that I'm no longer what I once was. You know, and so they shifted shape in writing their stories. You heard him, you know, the way he describes himself now, the different things he wants in life, the different ways. Well, it affected me too. How could it not? You know, I would be talking and I'd realize, oh, I'm not just sharing about my writing class at the jail. I'm actually advocating with these people about a change in public policy. Or now I'm invited to come to a meeting where we can talk about engaged arts and humanities at VCU. How did that come about? Because I spent years apprenticing myself to this dialogue that needs to occur that has so many different dimensions to it. I'm no longer a writing teacher. I have a valued perspective on engaged arts and humanities. And I didn't have that before when I was just doing a service learning class through Offender Aid and Restoration. I'm now a program administrator for a class that brings VCU students into the jail along with the professors. That never happened before. In the history of the sheriff's office, you never had a regular program of college students and the professors coming into the jail. That's great. And we have to say it that Stan's right. I may have been one of the first VCU volunteers, but Sheriff Woody has kept that door wide open for a whole range of volunteers now, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without him. So, you know, you need a guide, you know, but you also need that kind of access, not just with individuals, but with institutions. I find that most institutions don't know what they don't know. So they need to be presented with the new opportunity. I don't think if anybody would have said to me, you know, we really need to get college students from here down to the jail. We need to get that done. Nobody ever said that to me. The sheriff's office never said, we need to really recruit faculty and students to come in here. It wasn't on any institution's radar screen, right? But, and we're here for, you know, a meeting that has as its focus diversity and inclusion. Well, I know where the diversity is. I know where the diversity is that we're seeking, and it's at the Richmond City Justice Center. But nobody from any Office of Diversity ever said, could you increase African American citizens' participation in college by going to the jail? Nobody had that on their radar screen. But over the last 5 years, we've been addressing the needs of African American men or women in our community through this program. Again, if you open up yourself to what you don't know, I find that not only do you grow, but the environment around you can grow. It's just a matter of wanting to hammer and build something new. That's right.
You know, can I expound on something? You know, I think it's interesting, right, that they say that the rich keep getting richer, right, and the poor keep getting poorer. And we don't prescribe to that, right or wrong. VCU is wealthy. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about knowledge. The rich keep getting richer. Okay, well, enrollment. Let the students come in. Let the students, because the rich gonna keep getting richer. Right? Okay. And that's fine. There are people sitting in this room right now, right, that have a gift, have a profession. But what's your purpose? Because you have a gift, you have a profession, but are you fulfilling your purpose? And it's interesting, right, because VCU is the elephant in the city. It's the giant, it's the big guy in the room. When it's saying something, everyone pauses. If it takes a community to raise a child, then it would also take a community to re-socialize offenders back in society. It would take a community. It would take people with the gift, with the profession, and understanding their purpose. I hope that makes sense, right? I just kind of enjoyed saying it.
Sounded good. That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
But it's funny that he said mission and he's saying God. The other day I was late for work. It was the first time I missed a lot of time going in to work. And I heard that very same thing. He said, well, you know, we know what you do in life. We know that you're working, but do you have a mission? And what is your purpose? So that just hit me. This is the second time in 3 days that I've heard mission and purpose. So I really gotta sit back and, I gotta dwell on that because that's meant for me to figure out what my purpose is. I'm sitting here in front of all these smart people.
I think you answered the last question, which was
Oh.
what advice would you give to?
My advice,
Oh, yes.
stay consistent.
Yeah.
Whatever program y'all start, don't let it fall. It should be something that takes just your effort. Financially, it'll be a blessing, but if it's something that you can do without a lot of finances that can help, from me, I don't know what programs y'all starting, but me, I believe in the kids. I mean, no one was there for me when I was a kid, so I'm blessed to have one program that allows me, and the parents love me. They know I have a background. I don't have nothing against kids or nothing, so they allow me to work. I mentor, I help, I train, and it's like I thought that was my purpose. I'm still around. I'm not there enough now, but all this, well, as long as I'm consistent with the kids, each child I deal with, I help them. So that's my blessing, and I feel like that's my purpose. Like I told Dave from day one, if I can help one child with this program, this writing, this pamphlet now, book, and now what we're doing now, and I'm happy. Help one person. So if y'all do something, I just say, whatever program y'all in, if it's there to help somebody, be consistent and be thorough, because a lot of people will want to give up real easily, real quick. And if y'all gonna be there like Dave was for me, I didn't go through extreme stuff, but the stuff I went through, had I not had that little 5 foot white guy beside me, for real. Not even trying to put the race card in there because he could have been black, but he was there for me. And the people seeing that, and I know it meant something. So when my brother went through what he went through, I stayed there for him. And I was there for him. Missed time at working at, I was consistent, I was supportive. It didn't get him off, but it helped him with what he was going through. So just stay consistent.
Thanks. I think I'll hijack us for a little bit longer. Does anyone have a comment or a question before we cut it and say thanks for coming?
No.
I mean, I think this was absolutely great, and this is exactly the kind of thing we need to be doing in this initiative, and reminding ourselves of, like, what is our purpose? And I think we get so bogged down in all of the bureaucratic crap in so many parts of our lives. And remembering there's a reason we're doing all this. And I think if we can keep our focus on that, then we can do some of the things we really want to do. So yeah, this was absolutely wonderful. Thanks for coming. And this is a real start, I think, for us as a group maybe to really refocus how we're thinking about doing what we're doing.
May I say something to y'all? Y'all gonna be running programs. If y'all do anything like a program like this or something where you gonna reach out to people, make sure you have somebody beside you that has hands-on knowledge of what's going on, because that's what Dave did. He went in and wanted to learn about criminals, so he got criminals to be right there with him. So it was a blessing for us, but for 6 years it wasn't, because he kept them criminals on the front and they wouldn't let us out there. But it gave them good knowledge. Like Stan said, if y'all going to help somebody specific, have that buffer in between that knows exactly, so they can be able to relate to you.
And let me add something, right? Dave can call me at 3 in the morning.
Me too.
He can call me at 3 in the morning, right? And I don't care what the problem is, right? We can resolve it. You just never know, right, who, right, the creator have connected you with and how he's going to connect you to your purpose. The only thing you have to do is desire it in your heart. Because if you desire it, he's already provided everything you need to do to fulfill. Only thing you got to do is just pull your heart into it. And who would start a program, right? Who would start a program? Who would birth it into reality and just let it lay there? That it's your baby. You know, help develop it. You know, so thank you. Do you have any refreshments?